bad addict. Every time I was able to get a loan, I was doing drugs.
I've been to prison 4 times, twice in the state, twice in the fed.
I was doing all this crazy stuff, cooking drugs and just staying high.
God called me from a prison cell. I was a homeless drug addict, and my hope was found in a needle.
I was 8 months pregnant, homeless, living out of my van.
You know, it wasn't Freeway that saved me, it wasn't John Stroup that saved me, but God uses Freeway in such a mighty way as a tool to reach these people.
There's not a community or a county in America that doesn't have a drug problem. And the church has the answer, and it's the gospel of Jesus Christ. Welcome to One Broken Life. My name is John Stroup with my special guest, Sharla Sells.
Hi.
Glad you're here with us today.
Thanks.
One Broken Life is a production of Freeway Ministries. Many times you hear about the negative impact that drugs and crime make on our community, but you don't hear about the positive impact that one radically changed drug addict makes when Jesus gets a hold of them. And we're going to explore your life today, Sharla, and we're going to talk about the details of your past, and then what God is doing today, and then the future of what God is doing, where you see yourself headed. And we believe that sometimes the bigger the mess, the bigger the message. And so there's people that are going to watch this and listen to this, and some of them don't understand like what happens in the details of our addiction and our past and the things that have happened to us that bring us to that place. And so there are going to be people that are going to be watching this and listening to this who need hope. There are going to be people who are watching this that maybe have loved ones that are strung out or on drugs or alcohol. And some are maybe just enabling, some maybe judging. They don't understand. And so I'm going to interview you today and just kind of go over a couple theme verses.
Okay.
So one of the verses that we use is Psalms 51:17. Excuse me. And Psalms 51:17 says, "The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise." And so we talk about the brokenness, right? The one broken life. And so we're going to talk about the things that brought you to your broken place, right? And then Philippians 1:12, Paul said, "Brethren, I want you to know the things which have happened to me have actually turned out for the furtherance of the gospel," to make the gospel go further than it had gone. And so the things which happened to you have actually turned out for the furtherance of the gospel.
Absolutely.
And so let's just kind of give me a brief 5-minute or so less summary. What was life like growing up for you?
We grew up very poor. It was me and my sister. She's older than me. My mom and my dad, and they got divorced when I was about 5. One night, my mom just got us in the car, and we just went from St. Louis to Buffalo and moved in with my grandparents. Okay. So that's kind of how it went. They were fighting all the time. My dad was involved with drugs, and I didn't really know what was going on, but I saw them fight a lot. My mom almost got her arm broken one time trying to keep a bag away from my dad, and I didn't know what was in that bag, but it was a very traumatizing childhood. My mom was in and out of hospitals all the time. There would be months when we wouldn't see her because of her mental illness and not being able to hold it all together. So I remember my dad being gone a lot. He worked nights, so when he was home, he was sleeping. And I remember I would stay up really late, almost all night, most of the time, to wait for him, just because I always had that fear that he wouldn't come home because he was gone most of the time. So I really struggled because I was a daddy's girl. I wanted him to love me, and he just didn't know how. He was in love with the drugs more than he was even his family. So.
Okay. So we talk about you growing up, we see your dad as a functioning drug addict.
For a while.
Had a job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you had a place to live. Mm-hmm. And then abuse was in the home.
Yeah, definitely.
And you witnessed that. So that was a normality, right? And
Yeah.
so that's this is what a mother looks like. This is what a wife looks like. This is what a father looks like. This is what a husband looks like.
Yeah.
So I'm supposed to find a man like this. Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to be a wife like this, a mom like this. And so that really has an effect on people when
Definitely.
they grow up. And so tell us about when your drug use started. How did that happen?
Well, my dad got custody of me and my sister when I was about 9, and moved us one night from Buffalo, Missouri to Phoenix, Arizona. And I really did not want to leave. I didn't want to say goodbye to my friends, and didn't really want to be with my dad at that point. He had a girlfriend, and they just hadn't ever really been part of our lives. So I had witnessed a lot of neglect and a lot of the wrong ways of showing love. So when we moved to Arizona, I really struggled with school. I met these friends that were skipping all the time. I remember lying to my dad about where I was going and that I was going to school, and I would get on the city bus and go to my friends at 11. I smoked my first joint. I got this huge Ziploc bag full of this green plant-like substance, didn't really know what it was, and had a friend with me, and we just smoked it. And that whole time in Arizona, I just started getting with men. I remember my friend, she would wear makeup to make her look a lot older, so I would do the same thing, and this was in 5th, 6th grade. And we would go down the street, and there would be guys, in this trailer park, a bunch of Mexicans, and they invited us over. And so we lied about our age, told them that we were 16. And so then I started drinking as well. We would be driving and drinking. I remember drinking 10 wine coolers one time and getting so sick I threw up red, and so I thought it was blood because I didn't know that that's even what it did. I remember just several times of when I would come home drunk, and my dad would be laying in his sleeping bag because we didn't have furniture at this point. We had lawn chairs and a futon that me and my sister slept in. And
you shared the futon?
We shared the futon in a bedroom. We had a bedroom and a TV. We had no kitchen table. My dad had a room, but he slept in the kitchen area, in the dining room area where the TV was, in his sleeping bag. And he would be gone most of the time. He got a job working, he said, in Mexico for, a week here and a week there. So we would have guys over. My sister started smoking weed with me, and it affected her differently. She would sleep for days after she would get high. And so I wasn't a very nice person at that point. I treated her really badly. And my life was involved in these kids. Like, my best friend had house arrest. She was on house arrest, and she was 12 years old. And so we would, right after school, go to these guys' house, get really high, and then walk home before her cutoff time was that she had to be home. And I remember one time the joint was laced with PCP. And we walked home, and I started getting really sick and seeing these blocks and feeling like I was in this cartoon and I couldn't walk anymore. And we finally got to a stopping point, and I just threw up everywhere. I couldn't hold it anymore. And that was, before I was even a teenager. It was a pretty rough time. I, at 12 years old, went to a party and got completely trashed and started doing cocaine. And I didn't really know even what it was or what it did. They just gave it to me, and I did it. Whatever I was given, I would do. And I remember snorting so much cocaine that my nose just started bleeding and gushing blood. So I just went to the bathroom, cleaned it up, and did some more. That's just what my life was like in middle school. So.
Yeah. And so, unfortunately, it's not gotten any better for kids today. They have new drugs.
Yeah.
And they have new things they do, TikTok dares.
Absolutely.
And all this crazy stuff. And so So here you are. Dad is, you're pretty much fending for yourself. So you mentioned that your dad had a fiance. Was she around during this time?
She left him.
Okay.
About a year in Phoenix, she left him, and he wouldn't get married to her, so she decided she would leave. And I didn't see her again until I was probably 32. So it was just my dad at that point.
So I didn't meet you in Arizona.
No.
So how did you get back to Springfield?
Well, my sister graduated from high school in Phoenix, and I was in 8th grade. And my mom's family decided they were going to come pick us up and get us back from my dad. So they came out there for graduation. And
You graduated high school.
Sarah did. My
Sarah
sister
did,
did.
okay.
I was still in middle school.
Okay.
And I didn't want to leave because I had a boyfriend. I was sleeping around with all these guys and thought that was what was love. So I didn't want to leave, but there was no choice. They didn't give us the option. So they came to visit us, and then my mom bought us tickets on a Greyhound to get back to Buffalo, Missouri. So me and my sister and my mom get on this Greyhound bus, and at that point, it was like 3 or 4 days before we got back to Buffalo, but my mom didn't have a home for us. She had no job. She had no way to provide for us. So instead of, moving into a home that was stability, she got us into the Missouri Hotel here in Springfield.
The Moho.
The Moho. That's right.
I remember that well.
Yeah. So we
Rough place.
It's very rough. Lots of people drinking, outside all the time. Kids running around, getting lice all the time. People just doing things to other people that aren't really appropriate or right, and it gets unnoticed because there was so many people in there. No air conditioning. And it was hot some days. One room for your whole family.
Yeah.
It was tough.
So you're down here at the Missouri Hotel. So where do we go from there?
Well,
How old were you?
I was 14.
So what about school?
Well, I got put in Central High School, and I dropped out within 3 or 4 months. I started smoking weed again, started meeting people in the Missouri Hotel that were my age or a little older, and they were getting drunk all the time and smoking weed, and so I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to go back to school. So I'd tell my mom I was going to school, and I'd go to these adults' houses and just get wasted every single day. I would sneak out. My mom put me in Lakeland because I was running away all the time to go sleep with a dude. And eventually it got to the point to where I ran off and went to Kansas City with this family I had met the day before. And, we always think that the grass is greener on the other side. So I thought, well, this family will be better. So I go with them, and they, of course, were homeless. So we move into a shelter in Kansas City, and it was scary and rough, and the mom beat her kids. So I call my aunt, and she lived there in Kansas City, and I asked her to come and get me just for the weekend. So she comes to get me and brings me back to Buffalo to my aunt and uncle's, and they take hold of me and get guardianship and start taking care of me, get me back in school. I graduate high school. I kind of see a little bit about what a stable family is like, and what structure is and boundaries. And, I did everything that I could to do the right thing because this family was taking me in, and I knew I thought I was long gone at that point, but I was able to graduate, went to a Christian college after that, and went overseas to teach English as a second language. And at this point, I had been sober the whole time. I had stopped doing everything, started going into church and learning about Jesus, but I wasn't. I had gotten saved when I was a kid, but I was never discipled. I was never taught how to live right and what it means to really be a Christian. So when I went overseas, it was meant to be a mission trip, and I got a hold of the wrong crowd and started drinking there. And
where were you at?
I was in Romania.
Okay.
And it's a very socially acceptable thing to drink there. So it's nothing unusual for a kid even to be drinking. So I was 19 years old, and it's legal to drink it at 18 there, so it wasn't anything abnormal. So I would start drinking all the time. And I remember coming to teach English drunk still from the day before. And we would have Bible studies, and I remember being so hungover during these Bible studies, I'd have to go to the bathroom to throw up because I was so sick from the day before. And I felt guilty about it, but I didn't want to change it because it's all I knew. I didn't know that there was another way to live. And I thought it was okay because, I said I was a Christian. I was doing this mission trip, and so, everybody does it. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Came back and, really went far off. I had been there almost 2 years and really struggled with just loneliness. And so I thought the Lord wanted me to come home so I could get married, and he had a man for me. And that was the meaning. That was the answer to everything. And so I got home in April, and by August I was married. Met this guy from a job that I started and knew him about 6 weeks. And then we decided we were going to get married because I thought I was pregnant. We started sleeping together, and I thought I was pregnant, and I thought, well, that's the right thing to do. We're just going to get married. So we started going to a church so that we could get married by this pastor of the church, and they said, well, you have to be baptized. So we got baptized together, and so we didn't really understand even the meaning behind it. We just did it because it was the right thing to do. So
how old were you?
I was about 22.
Okay.
22, 23 in that area.
How old are you today? Can I ask that?
Yeah, 37.
Okay.
So,
right.
Yeah, so it was a whirlwind. Got married, and by October or December, I was pregnant with my oldest. And there was already red flags. Abuse had already started. Manipulation had already started. We were, smoking and drinking a lot. But I stopped that, whenever I got pregnant, because I thought, okay, well, as long as I don't do this while I'm pregnant, everything will be fine. But it got physical. The fights got physical. And I remember after my daughter was born, my ex-husband would take my daughter and put her on the other side of our bed and wouldn't let me get to her and let her just bawl and cry and just say, this is what you're doing. This is all your fault. Why can't you get her to be quiet? And, cops had been called. There had been assault charges. But I would always go get him. I would always, think, well, I need to go get him and not press charges. And so I never did. And we moved several times during that time, started smoking weed a lot. It was kind of, in my mind, my medication because I couldn't handle life without something or felt like I couldn't. And stopped going to church after we got married. That was just a thing that we did just to be able to get married the right way, according to what the world says, at least. So we just up and did that, and then had a baby. And I tried to leave my ex-husband, and went all the way to Kansas and went to the school that I was going to. Lived there for 3 months, and one holiday he started getting a hold of me on Yahoo Messenger, back when that was cool. And I couldn't stop talking to him, and I felt like I had been such a guilty person for leaving the situation and causing a broken home. And so I went back and thought that things were going to be different that time, thought that it was going to turn around for the better. And I got back, and that was not the case. It was worse than it was before. he would be gone till 3 or 4 in the morning. He was still in copper from his job. He was doing all kinds of drugs, and so I started doing the same thing. And then I got pregnant again, and I was doing pills at this point, anxiety pills and weed, and so I was trying to actually go get some Valiums from the emergency room, and they told me that I was pregnant, and I was like, no, that's not true. They actually called me Charlotte and not Sharla, so I thought it was the wrong person, but it wasn't. I was pregnant, and I freaked out. I was very mad and angry and didn't want to have another kid because I knew that we were already doing it the wrong way. I knew in my heart that it was not right, and my daughter was already experiencing this chaos. I didn't want to bring another kid in the world and continue to mess up someone else's life. So
where's your mom and your stable family in Buffalo at this time?
My mom ended up not being so stable. She was back and forth with men for, up until just within the last 10 years, I would say. She really struggled with alcoholism and just mental illness in general. So she moved back and forth from Buffalo to Springfield, and there were bouts of healthy moments in her life, but most of it was chaos.
So at this time, when your relationship with your ex-husband, is that what I call him? You're in this toxic environment. It's worse. You're pregnant. How old is Abby?
She's about 12 months. She's about a year.
Okay. And so you're pregnant with Oliver. And then I always call them Ollie and Abby.
Yeah.
It kind of helps me remember the A, the ah sound. But
yeah.
Anyway, and so you and your ex-husband are at war. Drugs are prevalent.
Yeah.
Toxic environment, immaturity. Your relationship is like basically 2 9-year-olds being married.
For sure.
Right. And so what happens next?
Well, I was about 5 months pregnant with Ollie, and he decides that he's going to go into rehab. And at that point, I'm like, whatever it takes. And we had been fighting so much, I didn't even want him around. But I couldn't tell him to leave. I couldn't sever what I thought was a good thing. So honestly, I considered this an answer to prayer because I couldn't do it on my own. I couldn't leave him. So he goes to rehab, and it was a 3-month rehab. And he gets out, and he goes to live with his parents in Oklahoma. So
So he leaves you.
Yeah, he leaves me. And I remember driving myself to the hospital to give birth. I remember being by myself. My family came to visit me and stole $100 while I'm giving birth with my kid. I had some guy taking care of Abigail at the time because I had no reliable anyone to be able to help me while I was giving birth. And I remember calling him to tell him, hey, your son's about to be here, and they didn't even come. So, and I was hurt. Even though this is what I wanted, I couldn't stand the thought of being alone.
Codependent.
Absolutely codependent. So and he was dirty for marijuana.
So there's people listening who don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So he is Oliver?
Yes, Oliver.
Had marijuana in his system.
Yes.
Okay, from you.
From me.
Okay. And so did the state take him and get involved?
They didn't, but they did get involved. They didn't take him, but
prayer,
absolutely,
really.
absolutely.
So now you got accountability.
Yeah.
And what happens then?
They come and do a home visit, and I stayed up all night and cleaned the house, and they basically dropped the case.
Which you wouldn't have done.
No.
At least you got a clean house out
Right.
of the deal, right?
Right,
So
right.
Your house is clean, and
Yeah.
you're like, man, I need to really change my life.
Yeah.
So then what?
Well, I got pills. I got pain pills, so I thought, oh, well, I'm going to quit these drugs, just in case. But I had these pills that were prescribed to me for pain. So I was taking them, as prescribed, and things were fine. And I became addicted to those. As soon as I didn't have them, I was kind of sick, but didn't really think anything of it, was trying to do things right. Well, I start smoking weed again, probably within about 6 months of having Oliver. And my mom had moved up to Springfield, and and I started taking anxiety pills again, but they weren't prescribed, so I was just getting them from people. And my mom had Oliver during, for a couple hours while I was supposed to be at work, but I didn't go. I was going and getting high. And next thing I know, I get this phone call from the hospital saying that my son is in the hospital with all these bruises, and turns out my mom was getting drunk, and DFS got involved there. So thankfully, I don't know if I should say thankfully, but he wasn't taken at that point, and I didn't learn my lesson. I went through the process, did what they wanted me to do until I got him off my back, and then things were what they were. Well, during this time, Abigail had gotten... let me back up. So I had Oliver, and I wanted my ex-husband to be involved with their lives, so I let Abby go and visit while I was healing from having Oliver, to go visit her dad. And I never got her back for 9 years. Okay.
So you get separated from your kids because of your addiction.
Yeah.
And you end up on the street. Mm-hmm. So all of this leads to, there's a lot of guilt and shame. There's a lot of remorse. There's a lot of self-medicating. No doubt. And so me and you meet because you were, in recovery and coming to Freeway back when we had the old gym. Yeah. And so I have a relationship with you there, and I remember when you used to come, and you were in recovery then. Yeah. And I guess your kids were not with you at that time, but you always would bring people. You were attracting people to God. Yeah. A God magnet. And so that's when I met you, and then you disappeared. And then all of a sudden, some may be listening for the first time or not really know about our ministry, but we have residential homes for men and women, and we call them discipleship houses. It may not be the most clever name, but it is what it is, right? It's a discipleship house. Discipleship, following Christ, is our recovery. And when we believe when you get that right, when you get a right relationship with Jesus and you start walking out the Word of God and you get mentored by a spiritual, someone who has, spiritual maturity in their life, then the recovery part happens. Yeah. Right? And so we get a letter from Sharla at that time, more. Yeah. And so you are incarcerated. Yep. And so for the sake of time, we kind of speed this up, get into this place. But how did you end up in that jail? I became homeless, lost everything. My kids were with my friend, and I started walking the streets of Springfield for 9 months. And during that 9-month time period, every other week or so, I was in jail for burglary, for trespassing, for resisting arrest, for stealing cars, attempting to steal cars. So you know how to steal cars?
Well, it was never successful, apparently. So apparently not. And thankfully I got caught, because the last time I got picked up, there was no release date, and my bond was so high, there's no way I could have ever thought of getting a bondsman. And I was at the end of my rope.
You have a great testimony video, and you are mugshot famous. I mean... There are probably more mugshots of Sharla, because it's not under Sharla Sells, than any person that we've had in the program. Yeah. And so it's just mugshot after mugshot after mugshot. Mm-hmm. And, as we talk through that and you're in jail, you have no bond. I was unbondable. Yeah. I remember my addiction, And the reason I'm saying I was unbondable is because of my lack of responsibility to go to court.
Right.
So since I wouldn't show up at court and the bondsman would have to hunt me down,
Yeah.
no one would bond me because I would run.
Right.
And so, I mean, it didn't matter what it was. But I remember having, sitting in the jail for hundreds of days just to finish my court.
Yeah.
Because, even if it was a misdemeanor,
Right.
I would, and so, and I was thankful for that.
Yeah.
Because, it gave me some time to sleep, eat, rest, and stay sober. But, so you write Freeway from jail. You're in jail. Before we get into that part of it, as you think about that 9 years, 9 months on the street?
9 months on the street.
So
yeah.
9 months on the street. Tell us about your darkest moment. We don't want to give the devil any airplay. We don't want to make it seem cool to be, run or be on drugs or anything. But I believe when you share like that dark moment, people can kind of really realize. Like for me, it was people. You could smell my feet through my clothes, from my shoes.
Yeah.
I would go to the dope house and they would make me put my shoes and my socks in a trash bag, put my clothes in a trash bag, change my clothes, and take a shower before I could even sit on the couch.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a dark moment, and that's true. That's who I used to be. And so what was your dark moment? Like, when you think back, what was it? Like that place, that took you to your broken place whenever you got to jail and you got clean and detoxed in jail, and you took a shower and you laid down in your bunk and you thought about it. Like, what would be your dark moment?
I would say there was two. One of them was getting kicked out of the trap houses because nobody wanted me around. I spent days walking alone on the streets. And the last one would be eating out of the trash can. I would walk the streets every night dumpster diving because that's all I knew to do, and nobody wanted to hang out with me. So I remember being so hungry and couldn't get any food, and so I went to a dumpster, and it was downtown by one of the restaurants, and I knew there'd be food in there, so all I could find was onions. But I'm telling you, when you're hungry and there's nothing else to eat, that's what you do, is you eat those onions and you're thankful for it. And that's what I did. And I probably stunk, and it was horrible. It was a horrible experience because I remember, is this all there is? Is this what's left of my life?
Right.
So.
Yeah, and then you get to thinking about your kids. You think about everything else because, I always tell people when they're on drugs to drink a glass of milk and eat a peanut butter sandwich and go to sleep. But when you come down, even if it's eating onions, you think about all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because
that guilt.
You feel it now.
For
and
sure.
all you want to do is make it go away again.
Yeah.
And so you're on the hunt again.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're in jail. Let's talk. Okay, so you're in jail. You're sober. You can't get out. I receive a letter from you.
Yeah.
I go visit you in jail. And so let's talk about, like, what happened. Because you come to the Freeway program, but you wrote a letter. You didn't have a bond.
No.
So what happened? How did the transformation happen in your life to where you are today?
Well, we still had church in jail, and so I would do anything I could to get out of there and be able to go somewhere to the NA meetings, AA meetings, the church services, and I went to one, and they played a song by Lauren Daigle called I Will Rescue You. And it talks about no matter how far gone you are, our God is gonna rescue us. And it gave me this hope, and I just broke down because it was speaking right to me. The Lord just opened up my heart and reminded me of the fact that I'm not too far gone. He is going to rescue me. He has already rescued me. So, and my life changed after that. Even with the thought of still being in jail and not knowing when I was going to get out, I knew that God was going to make this disastrous desert type situation into a beautiful, beautiful life. So here I am.
Yeah, so we received a letter from you. I go in, you're like a bright light and a shining in a dark place. And so I told Sharla, I said, my wife, her name's Sharla, for those that don't know that. I told my Sharla, they call my wife Mama Sharla because they call you Little Sharla,
Yeah.
which is hilarious because my wife is little too.
Yeah.
But, so anyways, sorry, I'm going down a rabbit trail. But so I told my wife, like, you're doing really good. I think we should give you a shot. And then you are accepted into the Freeway Ministry Discipleship Program. So did they decide to give you no bond? Did they decide to stipulate you? I don't remember exactly how that happened.
Well, they released me on pretrial services with an ankle monitor. I had a strict curfew. I could not go to certain places in Springfield or even in Nixa. And I had to be very careful about, my behavior because they would send a SWAT after me if I ended up doing anything outside of what the rules said I could do. So they released me into freeway custody, court ordered, and I was still awaiting sentencing. So they did lower the bond and then ended up releasing me.
RO?
No.
OR?
OR, yeah.
OR.
Yeah,
You're on recognizance.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, we have spent this time, so we're gonna kind of we'll speed round the next one. And so I want to share with everybody just all the cool stuff that God is doing in your life.
Yeah.
And we talked about your BC, which is before Christ, and now we're gonna talk about your after Christ on our next episode. But today you got your kids back.
Yeah.
Today you are married
Yeah.
to a wonderful man who also graduated the Freeway Ministries program,
Yeah.
and who also was court ordered to come.
Yeah.
And so, and here you are. You guys, how long have you been married now?
Oh, 6 months.
You're a newlywed.
Yeah.
And so you get to learn about all the blended family drama.
Yeah.
And having teenagers in the home.
Absolutely. Never a dull moment.
Yeah. But you're still serving the Lord.
Absolutely.
And you're clean and sober.
Yeah.
How long you been clean and sober?
2.5 years now.
So praise the Lord.
Yeah.
So we're going to really get into this. And so I would not miss this next episode for anything. If I'm listening right now, you need to make sure you listen to the next one. Hit that click button. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, would you share it with your friends from whatever you listen to? Maybe it's Apple or Google or Spotify. Maybe it's the YouTube channel, the Facebook page. If you would share that, Freeway Ministries is the reason we're doing this. This is a production of Freeway Ministries, and so if you want to support Freeway and you want to help us continue to reach more Sharla Sells, sorry, you can go to the website at freeway-ministries.com and you can click the give button and you can give a one-time gift or you can become a monthly partner. Help us as we reach one broken life at a time. So thank you, Sharla Sells.
You got it. You're welcome.
I'm getting it. And appreciate you coming on and sharing your heart.
Thank you.
So we'll see you guys next time.